at each meeting. Could I get a motion to approve we need roll call, Jody, sorry.
Oh yeah, no problem. Okay, let me go to turn off this transcription. And just so everyone knows, we are recording. So know that we are recording this meeting, and let's go to people here. Okay. So on the line, I'm going to start at the top. Anna Bozen with DOT.
Yeah, I'm here just listening.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, just everyone could just acknowledge that they're here, and I'm calling it off so we can, for our records, I can put them in the meeting minutes for next time. But Colleen Wolf.
Hi, I'm here.
Thanks, Colleen. Diana Rhodes. I see you.
Here.
Here. Jesse Doherty.
I'm here.
Great. Thanks, Jesse. Emily Weiser.
Yep. Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Emily. Daryl Hess.
I am here.
Awesome. Chris Hughes.
Yep, I'm here.
All right. Thank you. Joe Taylor.
Yes, good evening. I'm here. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Matt Johnson.
I am here. Thank you, Joni.
Great. Thanks, Matt. Aaron Younganalen.
I'm here. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Lindsay Hyduke.
I am here.
Thanks, Lindsay. Mark Lucan. I know, Mark,
Yep, I'm
you're
here.
on there.
Thank you. Sorry about
Great.
that.
Oh, you're fine. Thanks, Mark. Marcia Howell. I
I'm
see
here.
you. There you are. Okay. Thank you, Marcia. Shannon McCarthy.
I'm here. Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon. Mike Williams.
Yep, I'm here.
Thanks, Mike. Morgan Miller.
I'm here. Thanks.
Thank you, Morgan. Rachel Steer.
Good
Saw
evening.
you. Hi, thanks, Rachel. Alex Reed.
I am here.
All right, excellent. I think, got a couple more folks. Samantha Gordon.
I am here.
Excellent. And Susan Atchison.
I am here.
Thank you, Susan. And then Juan Lee.
Present.
Awesome. Well, we have a big turnout tonight, or 23 folks. Thanks everyone for coming. Great. Daryl, you.
Hi, Joni.
right.
It's CB. I think I missed my roll call. I am here.
Oh, CB, thanks. Right. I saw you get on and you're up there on the Cs, and then I was going down the list. So thank you for coming. And for the record, CB Brady has joined the meeting. So, okay.
Awesome. And it looks like we have a quorum. Could I get a motion to approve the agenda?
This is Lindsay. I'll move.
Lindsay has moved to approve the agenda. Can we get a second?
This is Jesse. I'll second.
Jesse has seconded. Any additions to the agenda? Diana?
Yes, I would like to offer an informational item to talk about an opportunity to have a film screening. I sent it out by email earlier today. Safe Streets. So Safe Streets informational item.
Awesome. That would be item 6H. Any other additions to the agenda? Is there any opposition to accepting the agenda as amended? Seeing and hearing none, the agenda as amended is approved. Could I get a motion to approve the March 6th meeting minutes?
Oh, hold
CB,
on.
I'll approve.
Oh, sorry. Let me just put them up there real quick.
Okay.
Sorry. Good. Thank you, though. Oh, I guess I could just swap. They're there. All right. Can everyone see those?
I see a picture of you. There they are.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. I know I sent these out a bit ago, so. Oh, and Mike's got his hand raised.
Yeah, Joni, thanks. I just wanted to note that I'm not representing NOAA. That's who I'm employed by, but in the minutes, it shows I'm representing NOAA for our last meeting. So I wanted to
Okay.
make that
Yeah. No,
change. Suggestion.
thank you for, yeah, no, that's true. You are representing an environmental organization for our BPAC seat. So, but typically when I put the minutes on, I just put where everyone is from, but I can certainly change that if you want me to.
Yeah, just because I'm not representing NOAA is the
Right.
issue, right?
Sure.
Thanks.
No problem.
Can we get a motion to approve the minutes?
CB.
CB,
Motion.
okay. CB seconds.
Mike moved, CB seconded. Other than the one requested change, any changes to the minutes? Seeing and hearing none, is there any opposition to approving the minutes with the one change that was requested? The minutes with the change requested are approved. That brings us to our next agenda item. Which is BPAC Vice Chair assignment. Did you-
Yeah. So, do you want me to speak on that a little bit? So we were,
Yes.
so in our internal AMATS meetings, we're going through our bylaws and policies for all of our committee meetings and or committees. And we realized that we actually need to have a vice chair assigned for this committee. So I didn't realize that until we had that meeting just recently, I want to say in the last month or so. So we need to assign a vice chair to we did have a co-chair at one time. Carol Fink and Eric Gurley were co-chairing, but this will be different. So this will be someone to step in, Daryl, if you are unable to attend.
Right.
So
do we want to accept nominations, or somebody want to nominate themselves? Do we have a volunteer? Or how do we want to deal with this? Is anybody interested in serving?
The CB, what's the commitment?
It's
Time-wise.
basically, it's the same commitment. It's basically just you're stepping in to chair the meeting in case Daryl is unable to attend for some reason.
Or if I can't sign a letter, you would sign a letter on behalf of the committee.
That's the easy part, I think, signing the letter. I have so much trouble getting on time. I'm not sure I'm the best fit. This is CB. I nominate myself chair position.
Any other nominations? Anybody else want to put a name forward?
Please.
Well, is there any opposition to CB as vice chair? CB, this is what happens when you volunteer yourself. Congratulations.
I'm in. I gotta start the process a little earlier for the next meeting, I think.
I start with Teams. I feel CB. With Teams, I have to start 20 minutes before the meeting to get in on.
It seems I like that for me too, but I don't know. It's probably user error.
All right, so congratulations to our new committee vice chair, CB. And that brings us up to general information. Our first presentation is the Safer Seward Highway project present. And who is presenting?
Yes. And that'll be Mark Lucan with DOT. And I know Mark's on the phone. Mark, would you like me to, I'm going to stop sharing and hand the share capabilities over to you, or unless you wanted to just speak. I didn't know if you had a presentation to share or not.
Yeah, I'm happy to share, Joni, but
Okay.
first Shannon McCarthy is going to do some introductions, and then actually Chris Hughes is going to be presenting.
Great. All right. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shannon McCarthy. I work for DOT as our communication director, and that is in the commissioner's office. However, today I'm actually addressing you as a member of the Safer Seward Highway team, which is the project between Bird and Rabbit Creek, and to improve the safety of that highway. So just briefly, this is actually a statewide team, which is a little bit different for DOT. We have subject matter experts from Fairbanks, some folks from Juneau, I believe, and then of course our consultant team as well is spread out. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Chris. Chris is our lead for, actually he's the HDR lead for the project. And with that, I think he'll go ahead and, but just to mention that this project is just starting out. So we don't have a ton to share with you in terms of, results or recommendations, but we do want to do the introduction, make sure that you guys have the point of context for us in the future. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chris. Thank you, Chris.
Perfect. Thank you, Shannon. And thanks everybody for giving us a chance to kind of introduce the project. You can go ahead and go forward, Mark, to the next slide. We don't have a lot here. Like Shannon said, we have 8 slides. I'm going to go a little bit of the history, talk a little bit about the stakeholder working group, kind of introduce you to what the purpose and need, the draft is right now, and kind of fill out some next steps. Go ahead, Mark. So we're going to have a stakeholder working group that's going to meet pretty much monthly. We're about to kick this off here in June. And the goal here is really to have a collaborative group effort. We have a lot of needs within this corridor, and I'll explain the full project limits here in a second, but basically from Anchorage down to just south of Bird. And we're balancing a lot of recreation use, a lot of freight movement to the Kenai, a lot of access to the Kenai, even local access in Bird and Indian. Obviously, we've got Chugach State Park. We've also got the railroad and in Turnagain Arm with a lot of with beluga whales and a lot of concerns there. And so, balancing all those issues and kind of getting everybody in the room as a collaborative group to work through what makes sense. It's a really tight corridor, and what are the concerns that the team needs to be aware of. One thing to mention, none of this stakeholder working group is intended to shortcut or change anything that's normally part of the NEPA process. So right now we're going through NEPA. We're working on an environmental document. HDR is the lead consultant. We have a full public involvement strategic communications team, an environmental team, and an engineering team that's working on the job. So go ahead, Mark. Yeah, so right now, these are a lot of the key stakeholders in the area. We've had a lot of introductory meetings just to kind of let people know what's going on. We met with the technical advisory committee, the freight committee, policy. We've met with the Muni. We've met with, pretty much everybody on this list, actually, at this point, just about. We've also had 3 public meetings. Those were done in March, actually. We had one in Girdwood, one in Indian, and then one in Anchorage as well, kind of 3 nights in a row to kind of introduce the project and kick it off. Go ahead, Mark. I'll just give a quick project history here. This project's been around for a long time, and the goal really, this is one of the first designated safety corridors. And with this project, the goal is to remove that safety corridor designation. It would probably be the last section of road to get to remove the safety corridor designation. There's a few other projects, current safety corridors that are a little bit further along, and they'll be removed. That designation will be removed. So this would kind of be the last one to get removed. In 2013, a lot of people are familiar. There was a Windy Corner project. It was 2 miles, 105 to 107, just north of Indian. That project was expanded actually to go from milepost 105 to 109, and so it pushed it all the way to Rainbow. And then through that process, really, a lot of the stakeholders in the area are the same for this project. A lot of the concerns, a lot of the issues, a lot of the tight corridor. And so really the project took a little bit of a different step, which I think makes a lot of sense. And it decided to look at the entire corridor. So it expanded those limits. So rather than it being those 4 miles, it's now 20 miles. And those limits, go ahead and go to the next slide. I think you can see it there on the map. So really those limits go from just south of Bird, kind of right where Bird Flats starts, pretty much where the first passing lane begins when you're traveling south. It's actually a 4-lane section of roadway. And then on the northern end, it actually goes all the way through Potter Marsh, and just on the north side, pretty much where the highway starts to divide. And so then one more piece of history there. In 2017, there was a reconnaissance report done. And the design concept, they looked at a lot of different things, very high level type report that was done. And kind of the design concept in there was a 4-lane road divided kind of through this whole corridor. It actually went all the way to Girdwood is what the scope of that effort was. That's kind of been maybe just a very, very beginning starting point, something we're kind of certainly going to build from and work off of. It is on the website. It is available. It's a public document at this point, and it does give a good kind of idea around what something might look like. This is a pretty big project. It's really looking at making some changes within this tight corridor and to try to see what that's going to be. That kind of helps as we start to kick our project off. Go ahead, Mark. So this is kind of the draft purpose and need, just the summary right now that we have right here. Number one, improve safety and really remove that safety corridor designation. It's a high crash area, and we need to improve the safety there. There's fatals, there's high impact or high severity. And so that's kind of the number one. And, in addition to that, there's a lot of roadway deficiencies. A lot of that has to do with geometry, very tight curves, doesn't meet design standards. And then finally, the reduced congestion. And I really see this a few different ways. There's a lot of platooning that affects within this corridor where you don't have access to pass, especially in the summertime, and it causes people to make maybe not the smartest maneuvers in trying to pass. And so you kind of have that. You have a buildup of just overall volume of vehicles. And then lastly, it's kind of, you have a lot of turning movements, lots of recreational access, both right turn and left turn. And that just really adds to the congestion within the corridor when you're trying to find those gaps to get in and out of traffic. And then I think the last slide here, go ahead, Mark. Yeah, so just kind of next steps. So right now we've been having some of these introductory conversations just to let people know what the project is, and doing that with the agencies as well. The next step is we start the environmental document, send out the scoping letters. Those should be coming out in the next week or two, and kind of have this first stakeholder working group kind of kickoff meeting June 15th, and then we'll try to do those on a monthly basis afterwards as we work through the environmental process. We do have a website. We were all for hearing comments, and I don't know, did I leave anything out, Shannon? Anything else to add, Mark?
Nope.
Nothing to add at this time. Thank you.
Yeah, any questions? We're happy to field questions or take comments or direct you where to go for more. Looks like Emily has her hand up.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the presentation. Great to hear that the project is Moving along, so I'm on the BPAC, but I'm also with Bike Anchorage. And at one point, our executive director had talked to you guys about being on the stakeholder working group, since it sounds like you're looking at putting in a bike path with this project. And we had initial contact, I think, but then we haven't gotten any updates despite trying to get in touch with you guys. So I don't know if that's still an option. We'd love to be involved if we could get an invite to that meeting on the 15th. And I can put my personal email in the chat if that would help.
Yeah, those, we have reviewed that stakeholder working group list, and the focus was, the effort was try to capture everybody that had a real stake within that corridor and to not overlap a lot of groups. So the Muni is represented and AMATS is also represented. So this BPAC group would certainly fall under that AMATS representation and is more than welcome. Those meetings would be open to the public, but the intent is more to have those stakeholders have the discussions to try to formulate what are the needs within the corridor. So I think there's absolutely an avenue and a way for that to happen. I'm happy to take your email address.
Okay, so just to clarify, I'm asking if I can represent Bike Anchorage, not the BPAC, on that working group. We were on your stakeholder list in a presentation earlier. So I hope that's still an option, but yeah, so Bike Anchorage is a nonprofit that is working to make Anchorage more bike friendly. So we have a really strong interest in the bike path that's being considered with this project. And I don't think we're represented on your stakeholder list as it stands, unlike the BPAC.
Right, and I think I'd like to understand, I'm not opposed to any of this. I think I'd like to understand maybe the relationship a little bit between the BPAC and Bike Anchorage to make sure we don't have overlap, or make sure we're not, if something's represented or can be represented through a certain avenue, then it's taken care of. And that may be some of the reason why it was there before. But happy to have more discussion.
Yeah, so Bike Anchorage is totally separate from the BPAC.
Okay.
Bike Anchorage is a community nonprofit. I happen to be involved with both. The BPAC has a seat for a community bike organization, which is Bike Anchorage. So I represent Bike Anchorage on the BPAC, but it doesn't really go the other way. So yeah, we're pretty much
it's a one-way street.
Completely independent.
Okay.
Well, we'll definitely get your email. And sorry, I hadn't heard that you had tried to reach out, so our apologies for that if we had not responded.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And this is Joni, just real quick, and I don't know if Aaron wants to chime in at all either, but we haven't really had, sorry, CB, I know you got your hand up, rudely interrupting your comment, but just because applies, we haven't really had BPAC members serve on specific project committees other than our safety plan yet. So this might be something that we need to kind of assess out internally first before we assign a BPAC member to your committee. It's definitely good for you to come and present to the group as a whole, I think. So, and I'm not saying that we can't do that, but I think internally we just need to figure out how it's going to work first before we assign a BPAC member to your specific advisory committee. But just want to say that up front. That's it. Thanks.
Yeah, this is Aaron. AMATS is being represented by me on the committee, and so everything will filter through me, and I can filter it down to the subcommittees as needed. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. CB, I think you still have your hand up?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I just want to reiterate, I think Emily would be a good Bike Anchorage, actually, not Emily, but also Emily, would be good for this meeting. Very integrated to the design, I believe, is bike travel also, or pedestrian travel. So if she can be on it from a separate entity, I think it's double whammy. Thank you.
Hi, this is Lindsay. I just have a quick question about the big picture
Thanks, Steve.
timeline. Can you
Yeah.
share more about the timeline for this planning process, but then also
Sure.
construction and when this would be a safe corridor someday?
Yeah, no, great question. So the number one goal here is really to improve safety within the corridor. And I think this being a little bit of a different project that's being ran through multiple regions of the department gives us some liberties to look at that maybe a little different way than normal. So that is kind of the goal. And so in one vein, we're working through an environmental document. Our focus is to get as much done where we need a summer field session as possible, whether that's drilling or wetlands, field works, some historical field work, that kind of thing this summer, and really take advantage of this summer season as best we can. After that, we would further develop alternatives and start writing the document. And so, as we get through agency review periods for different things, that could easily be in the next summer or maybe even a little bit later than that, depending on if we need to pick up any more field work. So that timeline is let's put that at 1 year to 2 years. I think in the same vein as improving safety within the corridor, another thing the team is looking at, is looking at other ways to improve safety today. And that may not be, large construction projects. That might be better signing. That might be some mileposts. That might be working with the fire department in Girdwood and finding out ideas that they have. We've heard concerns from them that maybe there's not enough markings of mileposts to help them get to a site faster. So my point is there might be smaller things that we can do in the interim while we're working through that environmental document that still reaches that goal. And that would be kind of more that parallel path. So, timeline in that 1 to 2 years to get to that environmental document, and hopefully we can start figuring out segments to construct once we have that alternative and have that happen pretty quickly. It is a really large project. It is 20 miles. It is going to take some time, but being able to do focus on some areas where there's clusters of crashes in the early stages would be probably where the focus might be. Certainly, Windy Corner might be a focus area because it's has had so much work done in the past, and so timing wise, some sections might happen pretty soon after that environmental document. It's really tough for me to discern timing for the whole corridor, though. I don't know that I could give you a really good answer today. Hopefully that helps. Any other questions?
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Got one more from Diana, maybe, or
Diana?
Hi,
you have your
yes,
hand up?
I do.
Yeah.
I just wonder if the Potter Marsh section, the Anchorage Park Foundation is interested in making sure that we have a safe connection from Anchorage's active transportation network, which is what we call the Moose Loop. And it is, also a priority of BPAC, but it's also just, it's so tricky right there with the highway and with Potter Marsh and with the Chugach State Park buildings, historic buildings there. Yep. And then you've got a neighborhood, and then you just trying to get across the freeway, and then the railroad is on the outside. And anyway, that particular section, I hope isn't going to, I don't know. I just want to just highlight that there's a lot of interest in that section in particular from Anchorage, that it's so many unresolved issues about how to connect the existing multi-use pathway to what at least the commissioner of DOT has said, committed to a path that would connect Anchorage to Girdwood, to the existing Bird to Gird Trail. And I just want to make sure that that particular section has more involvement. I remember we participated in the meeting in Girdwood, and it was a lot of really technical questions like, where do you want the path to go on the, on the outside of the road or the inside of the road? When would you have, like, would you go underneath to get back to the outside or to the inside? And that it is so tricky, but yeah, we were not able to answer those questions because we don't know,
Yeah.
what's even feasible. So I hope that that sort of research will come back to show where there are opportunities to be on the outside of the railroad tracks or on the inside, nestled up against Chugach State Park. Or that's what we really learned from that public meeting is just, you don't know what you don't know, but it's also very complicated.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm kind of hearing two things. One is effort to make sure we really connect on that northern end into how the ultimate facility is going to connect back into all of the Anchorage trails. And that I understand that might not be known yet. I know there was a plan. We got some plans from that Ocean View Park down and around, and that was going to come into Potter Marsh on the north end. I don't believe that got carried forward at the moment.
No, not yet. We had some pushback on that. So
Right.
we just we know there's going to be those types of things. So we're still trying to figure it out. How do you connect from our trail system? How do you connect?
And exactly. So no, that's fair. I'm certainly aware of that project. And then to your other comments about further down in the corridor, are you on the water side? Or are you on the mountain side? Yeah, we've been weighing that a lot with and hopefully in these stakeholder groups, we get some feedback from, Chugach State Park and with a lot of their interests. A lot of the focus initially has been what are the recreational areas that people are trying to get to? Where can we facilitate some of the parking that exists, and then some of the areas that that pedestrians are trying to get to, in addition to corridor long facility as well. So some of that drives that. Certainly topography drives that. It's a moving target for certain right now, and they're balancing a lot of different needs in the corridor. So yeah, I appreciate those comments.
Any other comments or questions for Chris? All right, thanks, Chris. Great presentation.
Thank you. Thanks for the help, Mark.
And that brings us to our next agenda item, which is an update on Spenard Road project from Dow.
Good evening. Hi, actually, I'm going to hand right off to Joe Taylor and Alex Reed, Joe from Lounsbury and Alex from DOT.
Alex, do you want to introduce the team real quick? Let me share my screen for one.
Sure.
Let me know.
I'm Alex Reed. I'm the project manager from the DOT. This is a municipality-owned and operated road. So we're partnered with them in the development of the project. It's also financed with AMATS funding, as you know. And then on our team, we also have several consultants assisting with the design. Taking lead is Lounsbury and Associates. They're doing the main lifting for a lot of the design. Joe is here with Lounsbury. Dow does our public involvement along with traffic and environmental. Rachel's represented here by Dow. And then Kittleson Associates and EDC is also helping. And then I'm going to pass it off to Joe, and he's going to give you guys a status update of where the project is at, and then we'll take any questions you guys have.
Great, thanks. So I'm Joe Taylor with Lounsbury. I'm the consultant team project manager. I know I've presented here a couple of times. Quick slide real quick. We just wanted to update. I think this is our third presentation before this committee. And recently we've been out and updated the project to the technical advisory committee and the policy committee. So many of these slides have probably been seen by most folks here. I'll try to go through them pretty quickly so that this doesn't get too long. And then we can refer back to anything in a Q&A here when we get to the end. So it's been, I think, November of 21 was the last time we were before this committee, and we were talking about a number of things. We were just about to go before planning and zoning. Since we've made our last presentation here, we've got a number of sort of milestones that we've reached on the project. So we're going to talk about Minnesota and Spenard and the intersection and the update on that, the 1-lane, 2-lane receiving lane issue that we last talked about. We presented the project to planning and zoning, and a selected alternative has been approved. It's essentially the typical section that we presented the last time we were here, with some slight recent modifications that we'll present. We've recently received our improved environmental document last winter. So that's allowed the project to advance into the detailed design. So we're kicking off landscaping design, utility undergrounding design, some of the real detailed engineering pieces that we were waiting for that approval for. So we've made that. We've recently submitted a 35% design to our agencies, to DOT and the municipality, that collects all the improvements that we've been presenting over the last few years. So that design is available, and we're going to talk about most of those elements here. Again, we're starting the coordination with CEA and starting the preliminary design to underground the major utility on the project. I think we have a picture of that. Just last summer, the municipality undertook a speed study. We've been working really hard on both the design speed of the facility and the posted speed. We've been making some presentations on that and have some things to announce, or that what we have been announcing with respect to speed. And then getting into a lot of the detailed elements for our pedestrian crossings and some of our intersection treatments and signalization stuff. We have a number of meetings this week with the Spenard Community Council to talk about a number of those elements as well. So the first thing that we want to present on, one of the issues that we've been wrestling with over the past year and a half, as you'll recall, is that the project was scoped to stop at Minnesota. And the original description of the project limited us to essentially the east side of Minnesota Drive. So in the past year, we've been out. That was the last reason that we were here before this committee. We had to seek permission to actually look across Minnesota. And what we were trying to solve there was the number of receiving lanes that needed to be constructed in the built condition on the east side of Minnesota. And so if we were limited to the east side, essentially we were limited to matching the existing condition. We had to have 2 receiving lanes to accept the lanes coming across the intersection. So in the past year, we've worked really hard to understand if that was necessary from a traffic standpoint. And we're happy to report that we've determined and have the agencies buy off on the fact that it's not necessary from a traffic operations standpoint. So we received permission to convert this to a single receiving lane here. And that allows us to reduce the cross-sectional width here. And you can see that makes the space available in this constrained right-of-way for the pedestrian amenities that we're proposing on the rest of the project. So this is a very substantial improvement. One question that we've received a lot is how we're handling the bike lane transition. And basically, we're not able to carry that through the intersection. And so I know that's important to everybody on the phone this evening. The reason why is we're limited to a pavement preservation technique here west of Minnesota. So the plan right now is to transition the bike lane to the separated pathway and then come through the signalized intersection. That's an interim plan. There's another project west of Minnesota for Spenard that's going to be able to pick this up and address this. And kind of the point we want to make with this slide is that nothing in this project is precluding us from dealing with that on the west side on the next project. We presented this at this committee. This is a quick board of the number of alternatives that we considered. 8 alternatives for our typical section. We looked at a no build in a 4-lane, and then we looked at 6 3-lane versions between 60 feet and 65 feet of width. And we presented on this a number of times. This slide is an update on the selected alternative that we presented about 1.5 years ago. And really what I want to point everyone's attention to tonight is this is changing a little bit from what was approved at Planning and Zoning at the PZC Commission about 1.5 years ago. And the change is very slight, but We've been communicating that the center left turn lane, we had permission to go to 13 feet down from the 14-foot standard. We'd been communicating that we might go to 12 feet if right of way necessitated that, or if we needed to come up with additional space for our shoulders. And so we've made that decision. We've moved the center left turn lane down to 12 feet. And you can see the 1 foot shoulder that we've been presenting over the last year has been promoted to 1.5 feet as we're trying to find space for our lights, our signs, and our other amenities. And that's the only change to the typical section. We have a quick slide here. I'm happy to come back to this during a Q&A. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but it's just a brief reminder. The selected alternative is in fact a slight variant of proposed option number 2 from the Spenard corridor plan. Really, the big difference is that this 4.5 foot bike lane, it's called 6 feet here, but that includes the curb and gutter, which is 1.5 feet. This 4.5 foot paved on-street bike lane, the project has converted that to a 4 foot paved on-street bike lane and taken that additional space and placed it in the sidewalk. And that promotes this to a multi-use pathway standard, which serves both pedestrians and bicyclists. It's a little bit of a nuanced difference here from the pedestrian treatment. And then, of course, at 12 feet, we're 1 foot wider in the center left turn lane than option number 2. I'm happy to come back to that and talk about that, but we wanted to have a kind of a compare and contrast there so everybody could see that. I won't go much into this. We've presented on this a lot. The differences between design speed and speed limit. Really what we want to point out on this is that we've been talking about a speed study that the MOA is taking on. We are all working to reduce the posted speed limit. That is a policy issue and a legal issue that has to be backed up by speed studies. The MOA has completed those, and the municipal traffic engineer announced last month, I think in a public meeting, that we are going to be able to reduce the posted speed limit. We've not landed on what that reduction is going to be. And so I think Mr. Coy announced earlier this month, 25 or 30 miles per hour is the range of speeds that we're considering for the reduction in the posted speed. And we just have not landed on that decision. We're still working on that. In our next steps, we're working this summer, this month, towards what we're calling the design study report under the federal aid rules, the DSR. And we're going to submit that here at the end of June or the first part of July. That's going to include the draft of our what we call our H&H report, hydrology and hydraulics. We'll be addressing proposed green infrastructure techniques in that report. It's also going to have our draft traffic and safety report in that. And one of the elements of that report is going to be a summary of all of the techniques that we're incorporating on the corridor to control speeds. And that's going to help with the posted speed limit decision. Here in the fall, winter of 2023, we're trying to advance to approximately a 75% design that we call plans in hand. That's the design where we lock down a right-of-way impact footprint. And what that does is it starts about a 2-year process during a right-of-way negotiation piece for every property owner on the corridor. We've got about 24 months worth of work in the right-of-way before we can advance that to final plans. So we're trying to get that here this fall, and that would push us into fall of 25 or spring of 26 before we could get to final plans through that process. Next winter, we'll finalize our DSR and get to that plans in hand, and then we're going to start that right away and utility piece. And like I said, that's about a 2-year burn on those 2 pieces. So that's a lot of material to cover in a very short order. But with that, we'd just like to save some time for questions and comments here.
Looks like Lindsay's got her hand up. Lindsay?
Yeah, hi, thank you. And I think most folks know, but I also am part of the Spenard Community Council and have had talked a lot with this team. So I really appreciate everyone coming out tonight and sharing the latest with everybody. And then the neighborhood is going to be meeting with this team in a day or two, sometime really soon. So I don't want to take up a ton of time, but I appreciate, especially Joe, highlighting some of the big asks the neighborhood has had since this has been underway. Since we've had the northern section and such a success there, we do have a lot of good lessons learned on that section. And then we also have the Spenard corridor plan to help guide the big picture vision for this whole corridor for the neighborhood. And so some of those big pieces the community has been asking for has been about reducing the speed so that it's much safer, especially for vulnerable roadway users. But also so that people can stop and shop and spend time within the neighborhood. And having a kind of more narrow bike lane on the roadway itself lends to that slower speed as well. So we've talked a lot about just some of the design width within the roadway and where we can put that, and are still really hoping that we can get a path forward to have the bicycle infrastructure on street that goes all the way through Minnesota. So I'm glad to hear that this design doesn't preclude it for the next section, because there's just 2 more segments to make Spenard whole. And it's this part east of Minnesota, and then the next section is in the tip for west of Minnesota. So that'll get into the area where CB and Center for the Blind are located. So we really want to make sure that we're improving this corridor design from the north to this next section so that it's locked in for this final section and it doesn't have to be as onerous. So I don't want to dig into all those details, but just wanted to share with the BPAC that there's a lot of engagement locally because we're really excited about improvements for this section. There's a huge need for these kinds of improvements, so appreciate everybody taking the time to weigh in, and I'm hopeful that we can still work on improving all these different pieces that you've mentioned.
Lindsay, let me say I very much appreciate the positive spirit of your comments. Thank you.
Of course.
Diana, I think you have your hand up.
Yes, I just want to speak from a user of the previous project. And I'm so excited to say that, like, bike month of May, I've been riding my new bike and coming down from the beginning at Hillcrest up Spenard, and then over to just all the way up Spenard, and then hitting the new Muni improvements at 30th Street. And I don't know if anybody's seen it, but 30th and 32nd, which has been it's a Muni road project I'm in partnership with AMATS and I think the Spenard project, but it's the Midtown corridor. And so you come up, you're on Spenard, and then you take a left as I'm heading towards my office at Midtown on 32nd. You take the left onto 30th with new bike lanes. And then it's North Star with new bike lanes and a new bike path. And then 32nd, which is a cut through with its own pathway to get to Arctic. And then you cross Arctic on a new bicycle feature. And then you go new active transportation bicycle feature. And then and there's signs for Midtown corridor that have like a wheelchair user and a pedestrian and a bicycle user and a person with disabilities. Yeah, it's the coolest thing. And I just want to say that, you know, I don't know what came first, but I know Lindsay was involved in it and all the DOT and AMATS and the Muni, but it's really cool. It's the Midtown corridor with its own signage and it connects to Spenard. And now, so like one way and the other way, there's little signs that say Spenard this way, you know, and Midtown this way. So it's really become integrated. So thank you. Thank you for your work. And we're excited to see the next round come through.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments?
Like Anna's got her hand up.
Hi, thank you. And this is a comment from a user of the system. The other night, I took the bus with my daughter, who's 6 years old, and we used bikes to get from downtown and through the neighborhood, and then we're taking transit. And I guess I would point out a couple things I noticed when having a young child in tow. I'm grateful that the sidewalks are going to be wider. I think that's going to be really helpful for little kids and families. And the bus stop, though, west of Minnesota, and the sidewalk there is atrocious. So I'm not sure if this project, you mentioned it's using pavement preservation, if you can improve the sidewalk, because it's literally crumbling there west of Minnesota. And then the bus stops, my daughter, doesn't mince words. She's like, this is so loud, it's scary. So just the standing and waiting for a bus for 15 minutes with a little kid and having nowhere to sit, nothing to, I have to keep telling her, don't pick stuff up off the ground there, please don't. And so I'm just sharing that kind of anecdote. So I'm hoping that the bus stops are going to have proper benches and be set back from the road adjacent and that kind of stuff. Thank you.
And I'm going to take a note here. I'm not going to say, obviously I can't say anything and commit to anything. We will look at that bus stop. I know that I can commit to not touching the right of way or increasing the width of the roadway. That's a non-starter west of Minnesota. But to be completely honest with you, thinking about that bus stop it just hasn't hit the radar screen yet. So thank you for bringing that up.
And we are looking at
that
amenities
particular bus stop. Yeah, it is right
on
in
all
front
the
of that
bus stops.
new ramen house, and
Yeah,
it's very popular there. So there's a lot of cars coming in and out, and
good ramen.
It's great. I mean, it's great. People are, and we could just anyway. So that's the bus stop and the sidewalk all along that area is just falling apart.
Yeah, good comment. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thanks for the presentation and the update.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. That was awesome.
Hey, this is CB. I'm sorry I got my hand up late. Can I make one more comment for Joe?
Sure.
Please.
Being that this is the Bike Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and I appreciate everything. I didn't catch the name of who just spoke prior to me, but I appreciate those comments. And I am also on the Public Transit Advisory Board, and I do use the bus every day, so I feel that pain on Spenard. But Joe, all I just wanted to say, as BPAC, as BPAC, we're promoting bike and pedestrian travel. It seems to me that between Minnesota and International on that west leg of Spenard, couldn't we maybe focus that on not being a massive 65-foot corridor and look at it more as a bike pedestrian advisory committee? I understand that there's the fire department, Station 4 on Taft Road or McCrae, but man, it'd be cool if that got smaller and more community-based around Lake Hood. So I just want to throw it out there. I'm not complaining about anything that you've done on the improvements, but maybe we can narrow it down a little and make it a little more pedestrian bike friendly. That's my only comment.
No, that's a great comment. And there are so many folks on this phone that are so much more knowledgeable about that next piece than I am. So I don't want to get over my skis here a little bit, but I know that there is a project that's a different part of the Spenard community is envisioned in the corridor plan. So that's kind of the last little piece of the central piece, and then it moves into the other area. And so
Sure. I understand. I'm just trying to beat the drum early.
No, I get it. I completely understand and appreciate that. And I don't know what the future is going to hold for that chunk of work, other than there's some serious changes coming.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments, questions? Thanks. That brings us up to our next update, which is on the 2050 MPT. MTP.
MTP. That's good. Thanks, Daryl. No, I'm just gonna give that real quick. Chelsea is our MTP project manager, and she's not here tonight, but she will be at our next meeting for sure with the bigger update. There's just not a huge update tonight. So she just she let me know that the plan is almost done with a full draft. So they're working on finishing up the MTP draft document. And they expect the next round of public involvement on the draft MTP to be late summer, early fall. And I also know that internally we've been working on some performance measures to go along with the MTP as well. So it's not a huge update, but that's all I have on the MTP. Any questions? No? Okay, well, if not, then we'll move on to our safety plan. And I believe that Juan Lee is here tonight to present on the safety plan.
Okay, thanks, Joni. I'm going to try to share a screen and see if it comes through.
Sounds good.
All right, can everyone see that?
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, so I will just start off by saying I am actually the stunt double for the AMATS safety plan update tonight. Nicole Waldheim is the project manager, and she's a national safety planning expert, but she's also, I think it's midnight where she is right now. So I'm giving the update, and if any of you were at the safety forum at the end of May, this will be a rerun. We have a couple minor updates, but it'll be mostly for the audience that were not able to attend the May 22nd safety forum. So with that, I will say that R&M, who I'm with, is part of a bigger team with Fair and Piers and Burgess and Nightbull and Kinney Engineering, the local firm, and we're a team working with AMATS on this first safety plan for the AMATS area. Okay, so what is a safety plan? What is safety planning? And more specifically, what will this plan do? A safety planning process basically gives people in the region a space or forum to imagine what a future could look like without the threat of severe crashes. The plan will look at safety-related issues related to drivers, bicyclists, pedestrians, people in wheelchairs, and those who use other forms of transportation. So covering all the modes and all the different users. The safety plan is a great opportunity to review safety-related data. So items like crashes and demographics and land uses, all working together to help us understand what is contributing to the crashes and how do we come up with solutions to address those. When the safety plan is completed, it will provide a specific roadmap or direction to help reduce the severe crashes through the E's that you've heard of before: the education, the enforcement, and engineering solutions. Okay, so how do we get there? So we have this awesome roadmap. There'll be a quiz on this later, so make sure you take some notes. But the plan started in February, March, and we have until the end of December to draft the plan. It's how we get from a plan to some action items to actually implement it, and that will be all included in the safety plan. The major tasks that we are accomplishing so far include stakeholder engagement and public engagement, which we did through a survey, and we will be doing through a community workshop as well as stakeholder meetings. A safety analysis, which Kinney Engineering is helping to collect data for, but that will look at high crash locations as well as locations that haven't experienced crashes, but where we'd want to be able to be proactive with safety improvements. And then it'll identify solutions or countermeasures to address those needs based on funding and equity considerations. All right, so I talked a little bit about what we've done so far. We have drafted a public involvement plan and are starting to implement multiple items in there. Working with AMATS, drafted a stakeholder database that we've been reaching out to. There is a great website. It's part of the public input platform that AMATS has been using for all their projects. It has a quirky little number that's kind of the identifier, but we're trying to get that updated to slash safety plan, so it's easier to find or Google. I think many of you have been on it. If you were on the, if you've taken the survey that AMATS had put out last month at the end of April to survey the safety issues that we have in Anchorage and the AMATS area. So you've already gone to the website. The other items that have been done so far is a plan coordination memo, and that's just to look at all the existing plans and policies that have been completed so far and the safety components, and that pulled out so that it can be looked at comprehensively to help inform this planning process. There has been some preliminary analysis with data collection, crash trends, and an equity overlay. There has been the first stakeholder meeting, which I think some of you have already participated in, and that was at end of March. There was a safety forum on May 22nd that had a really great turnout. And I think Joni had a meeting summary and a follow-up survey for that, as well as the safety survey that I talked about earlier. There was a very high response rate and really good input to help inform this plan as we move forward. Okay, so how's this different from Vision Zero, and what is the safety system approach? And that's what this plan is going to incorporate. So the basic premise of Vision Zero is that no one should be killed or suffer lifelong injuries as a result of a roadway crash. And the safe system approach provides a tool or a framework to help agencies be more intentional about addressing safe roads, safe road users, safe speeds, post-crash care, and safe vehicles in their plans and ultimately their programs. Underlying the safe systems approach are culture and equity. And this first AMATS safety plan is going to be applying this approach as well as framing the entire planning process that we're working through to get there. So there are 5 main elements, and I have a follow-up slide that will talk about those and what's been working so far and what sort of gaps there are that this plan will undertake. Okay, so I mentioned earlier there was a plan coordination memo, but what that's really doing is looking at the existing safety plan. So all the plans that AMATS works on have safety components. Safety is always key and at the forefront. And these are just some of the plans that address safety explicitly. So the Anchorage Vision Zero plan, the strategic highway plan from DOT, I believe that's getting updated now. The non-motorized plan that was completed and adopted in 2021. The MTP, the previous version, which is the 2040 MTP, as well as the TIP, the Anchorage 2040 land use plan. That's a big component of when we do analysis and looking at crash locations. How does the land use impact that? Where are the areas that have the high crashes, and how does the land use play into that? Of course, the AMATS official streets and highways plan. Actually, small correction, that's a municipality of Anchorage official streets and highways plan that AMATS had a role in. And then, of course, a complete streets policy. And then how do we reimagine transportation safety efforts? Where are the gaps? What are the gaps, and what can we do with that? So there are some things that are going well. For example, the existing safety plan components that I just talked about and all the different plans and adopted policies that AMATS has or the municipality or state DOT has. But going forward, as part of the plan development process, we will be looking at gaps, identifying the gaps, and want to make sure that we address those as part of this planning process to further reduce severe crashes. Oops. Okay, so this is the safety program I talked about earlier, but it really encompasses all of these elements. For the safety program and the plan to be successful, we have to move forward. We have to move the needle on severe crashes, and several elements need to be in place. Safety needs to be a priority for the traveling public at transportation agencies and in our individual job responsibilities. So that's the culture piece. Leaders need to be brought in and supportive of safety efforts. I think we're there already, but I think the culture part, we can just help facilitate that through this planning process, stakeholder involvement process, public involvement process. So the other is the planning piece. So plans need to be developed using inputs and considerations of transportation safety. I mentioned earlier that list of plans that include safety elements, and we will continue to support that and make that as a recommendation as part of the safety plan. Crash and other data need to be available and utilized to make informed decisions. So data collection analysis is really key to an effective safety plan and safety program. Of course, project delivery, that means projects should be executed with safety policies and countermeasures in mind. And then the safe system framework or safe system approach should be used as a tool to guide decision making. And then, so next steps. So this is just kind of a minor update. We have a stakeholder meeting number 2, which is looking like it'll be scheduled for July 18th. So look for that information for that next stakeholder meeting. We're planning on having the first public workshop in September. And the existing conditions analysis is underway right now. It's really close to being completed and internally reviewed, and then we'll be able to release that for the public to review as well. It will help everyone be on the same page in terms of knowing what we have, where the gaps are, and the deficiencies analysis going forward. We also have the intersection crash analysis and trends report, which is also being worked on concurrently with existing conditions analysis. And then again, if you have not been to the project website, let me see if I can. So there it is. So there's the link to it. And this has all the good information. There's the follow-up survey, and there's a safety campaign. There's good videos here that the Center for Safe Alaskans with the Municipality of Anchorage's Traffic Department put together. So check these out. They're actually really great. And I think this is a really great way to get the safety message out. And then there's contacts on there. Joni is the project manager. Her email's on here. Everyone knows how to get hold of Joni. But yeah, so with that, I will complete my presentation. And if anyone has any questions, let me know.
Thank you, Juan. Great presentation. Does anyone have any questions for Juan? Looks like Lindsay.
Yeah, hey, I don't really have a question for Juan. I appreciated the overview and looking at some of the next kind of deliverables for the safety plan. We've talked before about having the crash analysis and crash data from the Anchorage traffic report each year from Kim Carpenter. That was a big reason we wanted to also host that BPAC safety forum a few weeks ago too. And so since we haven't had that or haven't had a presentation, it'll be good to, of course, have that to review in June, but to maybe revisit at a future BPAC meeting. And so I just wanted to ask maybe Joni if you have any update or anything you want to share about the BPAC safety forum itself. I know some folks were able to attend that are part of the BPAC, but BPAC doesn't usually do things like that. So this seems like maybe the place on the agenda to talk about it or celebrate it.
I know, no, that's I would love to. I was going to say it is on the safety forum. It's F on the safety, or it's F on our agenda. So after Center for Safe Alaskans gives their presentation, we can talk about the forum and tell folks all about it. Does that sound good?
Sounds great. All
right, cool. Thank you. Are there any other questions for, okay, Mike, you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering, as far as the safety planning goes, right? Like I understand the theoretical aspects of making safer roads, but is the plan for this going forward to set some kind of quantitative criteria for what's the reductions that we're looking for from existing conditions, or how are we measuring our improvement by implementing this safe systems approach? And or is the goal 0 and that's what we're always shooting for, so we're always measuring against that? I'm just I'm just looking at what are the performance measures we're trying to get out of this process. So that was a question I had as I'm listening to the theoretical construct of it. I get that, but how are we measuring how well we're doing going towards that?
Great question. Yeah, so we're taking a little bit of a newer approach with this plan, I think based on national kind of data and statistics that other cities have seen trying to implement Vision Zero, and saying that they're trying to move towards zero injuries, zero fatalities, but actually seeing when they get more people out on the streets that feel safer to get out on the roads, out on their bikes and out walking, then they're actually seeing, not either an increase in crashes and fatalities, or they're just kind of seeing us, they're not really seeing a decrease like they're hoping for. So in this particular planning document, we would kind of like to shift away from measuring crashes as our performance measure, just because we are trying to create through this planning effort a culture of safety and make people more aware and have people feel safe so they get out there and use the facilities. And so I don't know that we're going to be looking at I'm sure we'll be measuring crashes still, but we're going to be looking at new performance measures, and that was something that we were talking about in the MTP as far as what kind of performance measures we should be developing. But it may be something where we are sending out a survey like once a year as AMATS to ask everyone how they're feeling on the facilities that they're using. Are they feeling safer? Are they, we're hearing back from them. Are they using the facilities more? How do they actually feel? And so that's one thing that we were talking about. I don't know that we've exactly figured out what our performance measures for this particular plan will be. We will be logging crashes, of course, and fatalities, but we're trying to get beyond that and get to something more that's how are we doing in creating this culture of safety? So through education and outreach and design, facility design, and all of those things. So that kind of a roundabout answer to your question. I guess we haven't completely figured it out, but we would like to include an approach that gauges how people feel on their facilities.
Yeah, well, it strikes me, right, that it's not just crashes, right? Because if you do increase users of the facilities that are biking and pedestrians and other modes, then you have to correct, right? You have to make that adjustment for usage. So I think there's some more data to collect to potentially get at the crash rate per user of the facility, right? That you would then adjust if you're accounting for increased users, pedestrians and bicyclists and other users of these other facilities. If you can make that correction, then you have a proper comparison, right, of before and after. But you need to get those facilities users, the complete set of facilities users, to get at that question. So yeah. I appreciate it's not a simple it's not a simple answer, but I think there's some data probably you can collect to get closer.
Exactly. And that's harder to measure pedestrian and bicyclist activity than it is for vehicles. So that's also something that we're trying to do better with our AMATS model, to sort of gauge that number, the non-motorized and the active transportation, better than we have in the past. So, but that's definitely in development. But yeah.
Cool.
Good question. Yeah, no problem. It looks like Anna, you've got your hand up, and Lindsay, you still have your hand up, or I don't know if that's.
Thank you. Yeah, this is Anna, and I guess I'm going to put my DOT hat back on and speak to the HSIP program, which does do screening of safety across the state. So it will pick up 5-year averages of crashes, both within the municipality and outside of it, and does crash rates, it does fatals and severe injuries. So there's a whole host that's already happening kind of behind the scenes. But I think Joni is right on with level of comfort and use. We are going to be doing some more instrumentation around the city in turn to collect data such as speed. So when we have this discussion about speed, naturally the survivability of a pedestrian or a non-motorized user goes up when the speed goes down. And so if we really want to have safe systems, we can use the example of the previous project that was posted, which is Spenard Road. Without infrastructure that is going to curb speeds, it doesn't really matter what the speed limit posted is. We need to have the actual infrastructure that supports the speed that we want people to drive. And that is through making the road not drivable past the speed limit. So when we have a design speed of 45 miles an hour, that is saying that we value that speed. So we really have to think about our values as society for this. And I commend whoever is doing those videos of who the users are in the corridors that you were showing. I think Juan had those videos. I think that really, this is about people. And so I would measure it based on the speeds, because speed ultimately is the killer of people. And so we could be instrumenting for speed. We have speed collection happening seasonally, as well as certain locations in the city year round. And I would also encourage this group to push back on DOT for when you develop this plan. We're going through all these efforts to do surveys and to do a plan and look at all this, that this is adopted by DOT for AMATS. This needs to be for the DOT projects too, and not just the city CIPs and else. It needs to be every single project within the city limits that AMATS is part of, regardless of who owns the road. Needs to be, if we truly are talking about safety, then we need to show it in the values that we construct.
Great comments, Anna. Thank you. Agreed. Definitely. Oh, Aaron's got his hand up. Aaron.
Hey, sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of mention that, we're talking about the performance measures and stuff that we're going to be looking at. And I just want to make sure people aren't too upset, but we do have federally required performance measures that we have to meet regardless of what we do for this plan. So you're still going to see some federally required specific performance measures in addition to whatever else we do with this. And I do also want to point out that this AMATS plan is being developed, it's for AMATS. If the municipality of Anchorage or Department of Transportation want to adopt this as theirs, they can. And we'll work with them, but we develop it and then they kind of do what they want. But I will say one of the good things that we're trying to do with this safety plan is develop it to be eligible for the Safe Streets for All grant program, which will make everybody within the AMATS boundary eligible to put in for those grants. So regardless if DOT or the Muni adopt this plan, they can be eligible to put in grants for that program. So that's something that we're working diligently on. Thanks.
Thank you, Aaron. Yeah, those grants are going to be huge. So I think, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Any other questions for the safety plan or regarding the safety plan before we move on? No? Alrighty, next up is the Center for Safe Alaskans safety campaign presentation. So I think we've got Marcia and Samantha here.
Yeah, and sorry, my voice is gone halfway up. So I'm going to try and share some slides that can do some of the talking for me, but I'm not sure what you can see. Did I share?
I can't see anything yet.
All right. Stop sharing. Uh-oh.
Is it not letting you share?
Now all I see is nothing. Well,
Smith. Well, that's okay. If you want to just give some brief
I'll
give a
just-
few highlights, just a few brief
Yeah.
updates of what you guys have been working on. The videos are awesome. We could show one of those too if you want. Could pull one of those up.
Yeah, I'll just go through quickly what we're doing, and because we're really at the beginning of this phase of the work. Using the safe systems approach, our work is geared towards the safe road users, which is complementary to safe roads, safe vehicles, safe speeds, and post-crash care. All of those components are really important. And for us, making sure that it's data-driven, that we use best practices and don't just make up stuff on the fly. As we develop a campaign design using social marketing framework, next step will be implementation, and finally evaluation. I appreciate those evaluation questions. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. The data that we're using is actually a combined data set using the 12,200 police crash reports, which are really good at telling us where something happened, what the conditions were, where they happened, and who was involved, and demographics. But what they don't really tell us is severity of injuries. Police aren't trained to measure injury severity. If there's not blood and guts, they tend not to be considered severe. And we know that internal injuries, brain injuries, traumatic brain injuries, all can result in severe injuries. So the data set we have is linking police crash reports with the hospitalization reports, so we can see the continuum from the moment of the crash all the way through, all the way through billing for the different types of injuries and looking at bike and pedestrian. We're also using the municipalities' crash data that you can access online, which is really a nice way to get everything from heat maps for where injuries or pedestrian crashes are occurring. So we have a pretty good idea of where the hot spots are, where there's a lot of risk and danger. The other thing we can tell and are looking at are demographics of the drivers, as well as, in this case, I'm going to talk about pedestrians, but we have the same for cyclists. We know that 66% of injured pedestrians are injured by a male driver. We also know that 64% of the pedestrians who are injured also tend to be male. So as we start designing our campaign, using all of this information is really important. Some other things we know are that more than 2 times more pedestrian injuries occur during dry conditions than icy, which is interesting because we tend to think it's icy roads, but actually, if you look at sheer number, 2 times more occur in dry conditions. 57% occur during the dark, which makes visibility of pedestrians and cyclists incredibly important. Interestingly, pedestrian injuries cost about twice as much as bicyclist injuries. All of them are too much, but a typical injured pedestrian hospital stay is about $100,000 and a bicyclist is $50,000. Those are some things that we can measure later as a performance measure. I mean, this is coming from injury prevention. Each of these people are individuals and deserve to be cared about. Looking at it from a public health approach shows us that some of these numbers should come down. So just like Anna was saying, if we reduce speed, and reduced speed reduces the severity of injury, these costs per injured person would tend to come down. And it's not just the quantitative data, although that's incredibly important and to look at and consider. We're also making sure that there's equity of voice. And last year did some focus groups with folks at the rescue mission and other facilities for people experiencing homelessness. And some of the things that they share with us, the qualitative information, is that everyone is impatient. Drivers and actually we were asking them about pedestrians, so I won't say bicyclists, but drivers and pedestrians are impatient. Many, many people are distracted. Drivers tend only to look to the left when they're making a right turn, hence the right hook issue. And we know that breakup make sidewalks unsafe for walking. And well, this year, it wasn't just breakup, it was incredibly high levels of snow. So these are some of the things that the folks who are experiencing homelessness are noticing. And that's important because they tend to not have a voice. They don't tend to show up at meetings like this. And so making sure that we listen and hear what they have to say, because one of the things we found was there's a large number of pedestrians through their hospital records don't report a home address. And that's something that's concerning. If we're trying to reach them by mailing them something or emailing them something, we probably won't reach them. So we're trying to make sure that we build in equity of voice as we build this the safe road user, especially vulnerable road user campaign, but also geared towards drivers. Some of the things we know that are evidence-based are that pedestrian visibility is important. And if a driver sees a pedestrian versus doesn't see a pedestrian, the pedestrian's much more vulnerable. So making sure that pedestrians have visibility gear, not only reflective gear in the winter, but also bright gear in the summer. And one of the things that we're also starting to work with is providing ice cleats, ice grippers, which so many people at the summit talked about the icy sidewalks and that it was safer to walk in the road where it wasn't icy. So that's something we're looking into. We want to make sure we're alerting drivers to high incident areas, because we can see that from the heat maps from the municipality. Also, making sure that this campaign is I'm trying to use non-violent language, is focused on both pedestrians and drivers and cyclists. And in the end, this is a long-term goal, is to create a culture shift where sharing the road is more acceptable, because there's a lot of road anger out there. And that's a long-term goal, but that's something that those videos were designed to start beginning to change. And thinking about performance measures, we have some outcome-based behaviors. So, right, that's the ultimate, we want to reduce severe injuries and deaths on the road, but other things that can happen first include observed behavior. So for example, if we do reflective and lighting distribution at a particular location, we can do pre and post observations and see if use is higher. We can measure perception change. We do an annual phone survey, and we'll probably start including other methods of collecting data to determine what people's perceptions are. And then also, the usual reach and engagement using social media, and engagement being measured with shares, likes, and comments, which are a much higher degree of likelihood of changing than simply reach. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And as we move forward, we will continue to provide you all with updates.
Any questions for Marcia?
Great. Sorry about that. I had to run outside real quick. My Dahlia is blowing over. Okay, thank you. Now my dog's barking. Sorry. And does anyone have any questions for Marcia? Yep, go ahead, Diana.
I just wondered, you said that you had data on the hotspots, and I just wondered if you could share some of the hotspots. Where are people getting hit the most?
Yeah, for sure. And you can access this also on the municipality traffic records website. But some of the hotspots are, and I know Anna knows this very well too, downtown all the way across the. I'm looking at a map right now. Right downtown.
Yeah, 6th at Ingra.
Yeah, 15th and Ingra Gamble, everywhere from 6th to 15th on Gamble and Ingra. Muldoon has some spots. There's a few in Mountain View, and then
Minnesota
all across.
and Spenard.
Yep, yeah, and Northern Lights, all the way across Northern Lights, all the way across Benson.
Mm-hmm.
New Seward and Benson, New Seward and Northern Lights.
And hopefully, I think with the engineering changes, we should be seeing some differences in the Tudor area, at least at Tudor and Lake Otis, and B Street or C Street and Tudor.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions for Marcia? Nope. All right. Well, thanks so much, Marcia. Really appreciate you being here tonight. And yeah, appreciate all the good work you guys are doing on the safety
And
campaign.
thanks to Sam and Yevi for being part of the team and doing a lot of the work.
Yes, thank you. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Sam and Yevi. You guys are doing an awesome job. We're always excited to have you give us the update. And just so you guys know, AMATS, Aaron has decided to allocate funding every year for the safety campaign. So we're hoping to continue this effort as a yearly project, which is super exciting and allows us to sort of keep rolling and keep spreading the word and doing all this great education and outreach. So thank you, Aaron, for that. And thank you guys. Appreciate it. Okay, next up is our, let me see, share my screen here. Next up is our...
It's us, our safety forum.
It's us. Oh my gosh. Daryl, do you want to give the update?
No, I will allow you to, Joni.
No. You could hear, I'll talk a
No,
little bit.
I
You
just
guys
want to
chime
say,
in.
it was well attended. I think it was so informative. We've had so many positive comments. I think we need to consider doing one again in the future.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was well attended. We had about 42, I think 41, 42 people that attended. I think I counted 6 or 7 BPAC members. So not everyone made it, but a good number of you were there. So thanks for joining. We had good presentations by, I guess I could turn my camera on. We had good presentations by Scott Thomas and good presentations by Scott Thomas and Brad Coy and Marcia presented for Center for Safe Alaskans. Juan also presented for the safety plan. I presented some the survey results from the safety plan survey. And yeah, and then we followed up with some good discussions. So we have a follow-up survey that we sent out, and there's a lot of good discussion during the forum itself. So I am still summarizing I just finished summarizing all the comments today. So I've summarized the chat comments as well as the spoken comments during the forum. So that is going to be, it's going into the final report, which I'm putting together. We also did some live polls. So those will be going into the report as well. So that was kind of fun with this program Mentee that we've been trying out. So yeah, I think it went well overall. And again, we're trying to create the report so it can be used as a tool for folks to advocate to policymakers for better safety, for more funding, more staffing, more equipment, and et cetera, and better design and all those things. So what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I'm putting the report together. I should have it together this week, hopefully maybe by tomorrow afternoon. I can send it out to the group. But yeah, do you guys have does anyone have any comments? Do you guys want to talk about it a little bit or say what you liked, what you didn't like? We got some good feedback.
Well, this is Daryl. I think we had a good balance between presentations and information and allowed an adequate amount of time for engagement and questions. It was a very robust discussion. There were great questions, and I have to say, some of the government presenters were pretty frank in their comments when they were presenting and when they were responding to questions. I think there was a lot of honesty.
Yeah, for sure. Anybody else? Lindsay, Emily? CB, you were there.
What were they
Just-
frank about? I'd be curious to, I wasn't there, so could you summarize that?
Yeah, Daryl, what were they being frank about?
Well,
that you
I
recall?
think they were frank about lack of funding and lack of staff and lack of support sometimes from policymakers. There was, I think they were frank when they talked about what we could do, what we want to do, but then what the reality will be unless the budgets are enlarged, unless they get adequate funding and staffing. It's I appreciated that they were frank about that we all of us in the community have to advocate with the policymakers for increased funding if we want to see some things happen that we would like to see.
For sure. Anyone else?
I was just gonna thank Daryl for leading the BPAC charge at the forum itself, and Emily and Jesse for lots of planning and prep to make that happen, along with Joni and Aaron. Thanks for just being open to hosting a forum so that we could go deeper onto some of these issues.
Yeah, you bet. Does anyone else have any comments on the forum before we move on to other projects? No? Okay, all right. Well, then we've got one more we've got two more informational items. So actually, yeah, I'm just gonna breeze through a couple project updates. We have just two projects that I'm going to talk about. We've talked about a lot of the other ones already in the meeting today, so I don't think you guys need an update on those. But the recreational trails plan is underway. There actually is a pre-app meeting tomorrow with purchasing. So purchasing moved on that fairly quickly, which was great. So we have a pre-app meeting tomorrow. The RFP has been out for about a week and a half, and we will have hopefully some consultants on the phone tomorrow to attend the pre-app meeting. So, and then once the RFP closes, I believe it closes at near the end of the month, then we will have hopefully some proposals to review and put our selection committee together and have a consultant on board, hopefully within the next couple months, or sooner. So that's exciting. And then the other project I was going to give you the update on is the Complete Streets Plan. That one is moving forward. We did find out that we are unable to use SRSA funds for that one, but we can. We're still hoping to fund it if we can find the match. So we're working with some internal agencies to and maybe external agencies to find in-kind match sources for that plan. But the TORA, they've been putting the TORA together at DOT, and I think once we have identified our in-kind match and where that's coming from, we can move forward on that pretty quickly. So, but we don't expect that one to begin until 2024. I see Anna's got her hand up. Yep, Anna.
Yeah, in BIL, there's complete streets policies and projects don't need a match. It's 100% federal.
I don't know if Aaron's still on. Or Aaron, I'm sure you're still on, but
I can send you the information, the directive on it if you want, Aaron.
That's only for that's my understanding. That's only for 2.5% of the UPWP funding. this is STBG funding out of the TIP to pay for this project, and it will require a match.
Okay. I'll look through, but I'm pretty sure if it's related to complete streets, they were saying that it's 100%, but I'll send you what I have.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, Aaron is definitely, he is the funding expert, so I don't know the specifics, but yeah, send the information to him and we'll find out. That would be great, but we'll find out. We'll work with whatever. We're gonna move forward regardless, but yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you. Diana. Did you have a question, Diana? Nope. Okay.
Yes, I do. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm interested in an update on the Lake Otis and Tudor project. It's in the tip, and I just wondered what the next steps are on that. The
I don't-
overpass, the Campbell Creek
yeah.
Trail safety
know-
project.
Yes, I know which project you're talking about. I don't know. I haven't seen anything. Is it approved? Aaron, is it approved in the latest tip amendment?
Yeah, they're still working internally on it, so there's nothing to report.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on current projects for AMATS? That's all I had. All right. Well, hand it back over to Daryl.
If we had one more informational item added, Diana, I believe you wanted to talk about the video, the film.
Thank you. I'm talking a lot today. I don't know why, but
It's all
we
interesting.
We had the Anchorage Park Foundation where I work. We had a group reach out to just say they have this street project video. It's very much an urban video, but it's about street safety. And I just watched the trailer on it, and it's interesting. And so since the Assembly has their new program out, their new ordinance out, I thought that we might want to do a screening and just see if anybody is interested in that. The Anchorage Park Foundation would like to work with Bike Anchorage and the BPAC and any other partner, the Assembly, to just highlight safe streets. You know, that we have our policy out, and this is a film about safe streets. And anyway, it only costs $250 to do a screening, and then you just promote it. And we've done events in the past at the Lusac Library, but if there were people interested, I would invite you to a meeting to see if you want to participate in any way in getting the word out, and just, that's it, showing it. We care about safe streets in Anchorage, Alaska, and this is what other communities are doing, just to inspire people who want to participate. And I sent it on email, so you can just take a look and email me if you are interested.
So was there a link to information about the video in the email?
I think
yes,
so.
there is. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, there was. There's a link, and then groups that have shown the screening. And again, it's very much a urban film, but it is critically recognized, and it looks edgy and cool.
So if any individual BPAC members of the BPAC are interested in participating through the organizations they're affiliated with, like Bike Anchorage, we should respond to your email.
Yes, and if BPAC as a whole was interested, that would be great if BPAC wanted to co-sponsor a screening. We didn't have that on our agenda to highlight today, I just got this email a few days ago, but it could be something that BPAC wanted to participate in a screening.
So I think we would have to, and I don't think we could take action on something that hasn't been noticed previously. Am I correct, Aaron?
Yeah, if you want to act on this item, you have to wait until next meeting to post it as an action item and give notice for the public and stuff before you can actually act on it.
So AMATS rules are that we can't take action on any action item on the agenda unless it's been.
Okay, great, no problem. If there were people who are interested, just let me know and then we could add it to a future meeting.
Yeah, we can put it on our next agenda. Make sure and put it on the next agenda. Any other comments, questions? Then we will go to committee comments. Any members of the committee have any general comments or thoughts they'd like to share?
I'll
Any
jump in.
members of- Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, hi all. This is Matt. I've been kind of absent lately. I feel like a slacker on the committee, but my excuse was I transitioned to a new position with the state of Alaska here. Gosh, it's been a while now ago, but I was without a computer that I felt I could use for this type of thing. I was trying to access via my iPad, and that wasn't working well. So anyway, it's great to be back. I guess the relevant input that I would have right now would be in our community council meetings, North Star Community Council, of which I'm president. We heard and eventually approved a resolution supporting a temporary protected bike lane on Fireweed Lane. And I'm sure that there's folks here on this meeting that probably know more about that than I do. We had some concerns in the early going when we first were presented with this a possibility that what are the safety aspects? You know, we still think we know that Fireweed Lane is a very dangerous road in its current configuration, and we had no information at the time about what exactly would this temporary protected bike lane look like. Would it be adequate to protect kids and just people in general who might not be have their head on a swivel and be confident in that kind of a busy urban environment. And at any rate, a couple meetings went by, we hammered it out, and I was happy to see that we did approve that. No guarantee it's going to happen on Fireweed. I hope it does. And that's about the only update I have. I wanted to chime in with something, and it's great to hear you all and hear all this great news and information. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Matt. I'm excited. I think South Addition is one of the other neighborhoods that may get the temporary protected. I'm hoping that moves forward. I'd like to see how the test works out.
Yeah, and real quick, one of the things that when we finally got the folks in our meeting who had the drawings and the plans, et cetera, at least at this point, and I know it's preliminary, but it would go the whole distance of Fireweed from Spenard to not all the way to the Seward Highway intersection there, because that's a little dicey, but back it up a block or two to is it Ingra or Gamble, and get people to offboard there. But yeah, and of course there's a lot of details to be worked out. Is it going to take one full lane? How many lanes are going to be left for traffic for cars? But I think it's really exciting. They have pretty good funding for it. Looking forward to see what they come up with.
That's awesome. Thanks.
Any other comments from committee members? Anything you'd like to share? With seeing and hearing none.
This is CB. Wait, this
Oh,
is CB. I just want to thank everybody, especially those that aren't on the committee that put your time in late at night, and it's hard for everybody. So thank you, Joe. Thanks. Who am I missing? Anna, Aaron, Rachel, everybody. So thanks for putting in the work, guys.
Good comment, CB. Yes, we do appreciate our partners. Any public comments? We got a few members of the public joining us tonight. Any comments from the public? All right, looks like the public is shy tonight. Could we get a motion to adjourn?
This is Lindsay. I'll move to adjourn.
Lindsay has moved to adjourn. Can we get a second?
I'll second.
Matt, was that you? Matt seconded. Any opposition to adjournment? Seeing and hearing none, we made it 7 minutes early. Thank you,
Nice.
everybody. Oop.
Whoa. All right. We got some we got a little reverb going. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate everyone's time today, especially you guys are amazing. And I know it's your Monday night on a sunny day, and you guys are great. Thank you for participating.
And thanks to all of the presenters. It was a very informative meeting.
Yes.
Good night.